Good morning. Today we are going to talk about your narrative thesis statements. So I wanted to walk you through how to make those. Today in class, if you look at your calendar, I printed it off just to kind of help. This should be pretty spot on. So you are going to get it. Well, you group being virtual, you're going to watch the video, you're going to complete your narrative thesis statement, and then you're just going to do a conflict practice. So um, the question really is, how do I make a narrative thesis statement? Because I've taught you to not use first person point of view and to use three reasons. Oftentimes in our narrative, it's going to look just a little different. So there's a few steps that I want to take, and you can see there's a total of 7 slides. So really there's like 6 steps. So step 1, pre-write. So pre-write your narrative. Think about all the details that you can remember from the event. So somebody had said a vacation that went wrong. So just try to think in your head, what are all the things that happened? And I would write down, what did you taste? What did you feel? What did you hear? Try to get those 5 senses going. You can always reorder them. You can also always fix any details that maybe you remembered wrong. So that doesn't matter. I did give you an example. So maybe you remember the taste of coconut after your grandmother's funeral, which will help you remember that you ate all your grandmother's favorite coconut cake at the gathering at the funeral. You can then try to find that recipe and use it as a way to jog other memories about your grandmother. So the whole point is that we're just trying to pick onto different memories to try to remember more about the event. Now, if you made it up and you're trying to make it as believable as you possibly can, this might be a more challenging task for you. You might have to actually pretend that you were there and what would have been some memories that you had. So first step is to pre-write. So if you can, when we're doing this, try to think, what are the steps that I need to take? Because you're getting ready to do this thesis statement. So now you will have pre-written it. So then what you're going to start working on is a plot pyramid. This can just be a super easy sketch. It does not have to be anything difficult at this point. Like, this is the beginning, the almost middle, the middle of my story, and heading towards the end. So just what's the beginning, middle, end even? What happened in the beginning? Where was I? What was the big conflict? And then what happened at the very end? Definitely try to think about these last things, though. The conflict, the protagonist, and the antagonist. Those are definitely all important things. So now you're going to try to create a short phrase for each part of your plot pyramid. So again, if you only have 3 pieces, which I think is sufficient, if I have my beginning, middle, and end, I would go in and write just like a summarization almost. For example, if you were writing about a grandparent's death, and in the exposition you're describing the house as you all gathered together to hear the news, you could say, gathering to hear the news. Now, you might already just do this. Your exposition might just be a short phrase, and that's fine. But I'm trying to get you to where you can see 3 main pieces of your puzzle. So this is what happened in the beginning, the end, or the middle, and the end. So basically that will transcribe to our 3 reasons that we have. So then you're going to try to come up with a main idea. So if I was you, I would just be scratching this out on paper. So I would just have it here, and I would have, like, here are my details of the story, just like this, and I would just kind of like pinpoint them down. And then I would have underneath that my quick plot pyramid. Looks just like that. So you can see how quickly I'm doing this. Now, if I'm going off the example I have, I would just be putting in gathering to hear the news as my exposition. So you can see I just have that written down there. So right underneath that is where I would start coming up with a main idea. So what is going to be the whole point of your piece? If you're talking about your grandparents' death, it may have a main idea of, I'm going to discuss the issue of grief. It can be something as simple as that, because we're just trying to come up with an ultimate thesis. So we're heading to that point. So we can say things like, I will do this, or I will talk about a vacation that went terribly wrong. I will talk about a lesson that I learned. So it doesn't have to be as simple as grief. I would try to make your vocabulary as good as you can in this moment. But again, you're just heading towards what's the main point that you're going to talk about? So what are you going to discuss in here? The issue of, or what are you going to talk about? So then we're going to add examples, ideally 3. So you can see that I started to add examples into that. So in this essay, I will discuss, and now also I want to note, I'm not going to stop here. I actually have to refine it here in the next step. But this is how I like step by step do mine. So in this essay, I will discuss the issue of grief by discussing my grandmother's sickness, discussing my grandmother's death, and talk about what happened afterwards. So I have to talk about the sickness, the death, and what happened afterwards. If you did like a vacation, maybe you're going to talk about the planning process, the vacation that went wrong, and then the aftermath. Now, if your aftermath is nothing exciting, so like in a death, clearly the aftermath, my father-in-law died not too long ago. The aftermath is difficult because you are trying to clean up the pieces here and you're trying to heal. If you just had a vacation that went wrong and it was just like the car broke down, you might not have a large aftermath to deal with. So you're going to try to come up with 3 different pieces here to support my main idea. So in this one, the sickness, the death, and what happened afterwards. So I then decided to go ahead and adjust it grammatically. So in this essay, I will discuss the issue of grief by discussing my grandmother's sickness, my grandmother's death, and what happened afterwards. So again, I still kept my 3 reasons. I just tried to make it a little more grammatically correct. So then I'm going to go down to my final step, which is refining it or fixing it, if we're just being basic here. So we're going to remove any repetitive phrases, and we're going to try to make it a little bit more sophisticated. So my first fix at this is that beginning part. So in this essay, I will discuss the issue of grief by describing one of my personal life experiences when my grandmother became sick, died, and how I dealt with her death. So I even added this part on. I'm going to discuss one of my personal life experiences because that's what I'm doing in this narrative. Now, I can't just stop there because you know that I hate saying in this essay, I will do this. I hate that. I think it makes your paper sound just not as intelligent, and we want it to sound intelligent. So you're going to try to remove that I will discuss, and we're going to make it more formal. So here's how I did that. Grief affects everyone's life at one point or another, and it certainly has affected mine. When my grandmother became sick and passed away, and I had to learn how to deal with the aftermath of her death. 3 things. And you can see where I took it and I made it sound so much more sophisticated. It would be a great idea to jot this down, to pause, and to jot down the good example. So if I was you, I would right now pause, and this I would jot down. So when you come up with your thesis statement, I expect to see something similar to where it does not say I will discuss. It won't say in this essay. So you are going to come up with a thesis using this as your exemplar model. So take your topic and just go through these steps. So pre-write it, plot pyramid, short phrases about your plot pyramid, come up with your main idea, add examples, and then fix it. So a total of 6 steps. Now, if you have questions on it, feel free to ask me. I also made it to where you can edit your response. Now, you cannot really move on much until we get your thesis handled, because otherwise, how are you going to write about your paper? So that's your task for the day. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be around today to answer. And I also have a lot of late work too, so bear with me today. I will see you guys tomorrow.